Well, we'd like to hear, first of all, kind of your journey into customized learning.
Okay.
And how it went, how you're part of the team. Can you just tell us how you got into it along with your fellow teachers?
Okay. Last year we had an experimental. I did an experimental with an 8th grade group of students, just allowing students to work at their own pace. It was very structured classroom still, traditional classroom, except for I let students kind of move at their own pace. And they pretty much traveled in groups of 3 or 4 different groups within the classroom. This year then we went full into both 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and this year we've, again, implementing all of that has been challenging, but it's been rewarding as well. So,
was there anything about the process as you got into it that was different than what you initially understood customized learning to be?
Initially, I thought there'd be a lot more students that would really take off. Like, I thought I would have a large span of kids way behind, kids that were way in front, and in the middle. And that necessarily wasn't the case. I mean, I had some students that really excelled and did well and moved through the material quickly, but then I just allowed them the opportunity to go deeper into the subject. My mainstream group of kids, they stayed at a constant pace as we went through, and it's allowed me more time to stay concentrated on that other group. So really, I don't notice it where I have kids on 3 different units. We're all on the same unit, but we have some kids that are maybe towards the front and some that are just kind of starting and struggling through a little bit here and there. And but otherwise, I mean, that was probably my biggest misconception, was that I was going to have kids from 2 units ahead and kids way behind, and that just has not been the case.
Was it important for you to go through the process with a team of fellow teachers?
It's nice to bounce ideas off of another group of teachers. I mean, we really worked well together. We plan our days together. We can say what worked, what didn't work. When I tried this last year, when I was by myself, I was on an island, and I didn't really have a lot of ideas, of just ideas I was creating. And now listening to everybody else, the way they're implementing it, has really helped. That I'm not the only one going through the process of doing it. And we've been a good support system for each other, which has been great, so that has been a positive.
Something we ask every teacher, there's some people who have criticized from the outside, saying, well, in customized schools, teachers don't teach anymore, and they're thinking because their students are telling them they're not in front of the classroom lecturing to 30 of us. How would you reply to that?
I can understand the misconception right away, because on the outside you hear that students are working at their own pace, but for me, every day I'm individually instructing students or in small groups as we go through. So it's not just me sitting at my desk and saying, oh, here's an assignment you're done with, check, check, check. I mean, to be efficient at this and effective at it, you've got to get up, you've got to move around with the students. I still have classroom lectures where I'll have 15 students where we do a classroom 15, 20-minute lecture. So there's a lot of face-to-face with my students, and it's not by any means just sitting back and letting them just work at their own pace. You've got to be involved with them, and if they have questions and things. So I'm constantly moving throughout the room, helping them out on their different, whatever task or project or assignment that they're working on.
Do you feel like you get to know students better or in a different way than you did previously?
I probably get to know the students that always hit in the classroom the best. Like you always had that student or a couple of students that would be in the back, and they don't really necessarily share a lot with the rest of the class. And in this customized learning, I can go talk with them one-on-one or in small groups, and I get a chance to really understand what they know instead, because sometimes they're a hidden gem. They know a lot, but they just do not feel comfortable expressing it to everybody. So that has really helped, I think, to understand those students, the ones that are the ones that aren't necessarily the vocal students in your class. It really has helped me to better understand what they know about the subject matter and just know them as a person better too.
Can you kind of run through maybe what a typical day like is for you now compared to a couple of years ago?
Okay, so to start our day out, there's the core group of teachers. We all meet to go through our schedule and schedule our kids throughout the day to make sure that we're touching base with the kids we need to. There's a lot of communication back and forth to figure out which students are going where throughout the day. And then as the students start to come into these classrooms, I've had to take a step back from the worrying about deadlines and schedules. Really the theme is, and the focus is, do the students understand the content before they move on? And so that has been kind of an adjustment that I've had before. I was trying to make sure that I fit the content between this Monday and 2 Mondays from now. I needed to make sure that I was moved on, and planning my day has definitely changed that quite a bit. You know, just making sure that each student is progressing and they're understanding the content, just instead of just giving them an assignment. Oh, they didn't pass this one, but hopefully they get the next one. So it's changed my thought process with that.
Obviously, that connects to what they're seeing on Schoology, and we've
Yeah.
had some students explain, you know, how that is from
Yeah.
their perspective. How much work is that to make sure that's functioning for them?
This initial year has been a lot. I mean, it has been a lot to set up Schoology, to make sure that it is all the way through, or, you know, get so that they understand what's going on. But also, it's not as how do I say this? Schoology, making sure that I have everything lined up from the beginning of the unit to the end is definitely very important. But you have to be able to maneuver within that. So I will change assignments as we need to, as needed, as as we go through. This initial year has been quite a bit of upkeep. Now next year will be, I'm just adding more content to it, more things to go with it. So I mean, initially it has been quite a bit of setup, but as I look at it, I'm on a 3-year plan to make sure that it. You can't implement it all in 1 year. It just is not feasible. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to get it done.
Do you feel like your students' parents understand what's happening here, and have they generally been supportive?
I have not heard anything negative from parents with regards to what they're accomplishing in social studies or anything like that. Like we communicate with our parents every Thursday. The kids send home an email to their parents, and we communicate back and forth that way to let them know where they're at with the pace in our classroom. They have probably more access to how the student is doing in school now than, for example, when I was going to school. It was all me taking my paper home. Now they can go on to Schoology and they can see how their student is doing. They can see the comments that I make back to them. So I would say, if anything, they can be more involved in their students' education than maybe they were able to in the past, because all kind of relied on, I was on one end, parents on the other end, and the students were in between. And now teachers and parents seem like they can interact easier, and students and parents interact easier using the different mediums we've been using for Schoology, et cetera, and email and all that. So,
Lenny, do you have a question?
Yeah, I got a couple. It sounds like one of the big focuses you folks did first was the flexible schedule and working it so students had a bit of pace. What's kind of the next thing you're looking ahead as a staff? What are you going to try to change up next?
well, you're right. The first was getting a schedule, getting Schoology, a vehicle to kind of to propel our curriculum forward. The next is to build on that. To allow maybe more of a flipped classroom environment, so students have more access to us, outside, like taking videos of our lectures and different things like that. Just building upon the curriculum that we have, and just learning from our things that we like to do differently. I mean, that's our big focus. I think is to keep what works, what didn't work, change it. So that's kind of what our focus, I think, will be on in the next couple of years as we go through this.
Since you've got kids in different places at different times, social studies seems to be one of those subjects where discussion is a big part of making social studies work. How do you manage that when kids may be in different places?
So every day, I make sure I touch base with every kid every day. So we have groups of 10, 15, or 20 that are at close to the same level or same assignment, and we'll have a discussion based upon that. So not every kid is where we're at, so then I just preface everything by, all right, today this is going to be the review or preview. So I get some of those kids that aren't quite to that level, but they're hearing it, and then they can do assignments, and it actually helps them. I don't think it matters that the lecture has to happen after they've read necessarily or before they've read. As long as they're effectively engaged, you can effectively engage them. It doesn't matter where that necessarily assignment falls. And the lectures that I have now are not 50-minute lectures. They're 15 to 20-minute, maybe concentrated discussion is what we do. It's student-led, what they know, what they think they know, and just allow them to explore it that way.
What are some of the other challenges of social studies? What is it that you have to struggle with to make it fit in a customized environment?
You know, I think social studies fits probably easier into mass customized learning than others, because everything we do is linear for the most part. This event happened, and then this event, and this event, and this event, and this event. So it's not necessarily skills driven as much as it is understanding how these pieces fit together into the big picture. So a lot of ways, I think English and math, if you don't understand a skill, it's very hard for you to move on to that next understanding. In social studies, you just have to understand how it fits into the overall scope of what we're trying to talk about.
I think that's about it.
That was
Okay.
a very good interview.
All right.
Well, I want to say if there's anything you'd like to say we haven't addressed.
Probably my biggest thing is if you jump into mass customized learning, you just got to take a breath. It's not like don't be overwhelmed by what it's got to look like at the very end of the year. This is going to be something that you have to be able to change throughout the year and just understand it's a process. And we're doing it because it's best for kids. We're not deminusing kids through school anymore. And I think they have a better grasp. Our students have a better grasp of the content we're covering underneath mass customized learning than it was when I was doing the classroom, the structured environment. I had kids that understood it, some kids that didn't quite. Well, it's hopefully they average it out, in the next unit, average their grade out, and that doesn't happen anymore. They understand the material when they move through. I think that's got to be the focus when you jump into mass customized learning.